few months ago, something strange happened to me while driving home alone at night. I'm 34, and I work as a freelance graphic designer. Late nights are normal for me, and I often take the same winding back road next to a dense forest. It always felt creepy, especially when the streetlights flickered. But I never expected what I would face. On a crisp autumn evening, my car suddenly stalled. I pulled over, feeling uneasy. The engine was silent, and the woods loomed beyond the trees. I stepped out to check under the hood, convinced it was just some minor glitch. But as I did, I thought I heard laughter echoing from the woods. It felt off. Kids shouldn't be out there at this hour. I quickly restarted the engine and drove off, pushing the laughter out of my mind. The next night, everything escalated. I was driving slowly when I saw something dart across the road. It was a shadow moving way too fast for me to get a good look. My palms were sweaty on the steering wheel. It felt like someone was watching me, and I glanced in my rearview mirror. It flickered for a second. Maybe it was just a trick of the light, but it made me freeze. The trees seemed to close in around me. The third night was even stranger. I drove past an overgrown lot when I spotted a figure by the roadside. I slowed down, thinking it might be someone needing help. But as I got closer, the figure just vanished into thin air. My heart thudded as I drove away, a buzz of nervous energy making me feel sick. Had I really seen that? Or was it just my imagination? Then came the final event. By then, I had almost become numb to the strangeness. As I neared the forest, I felt a dark presence surrounding me. I looked over at the trees and stopped breathing. I swear I saw glowing eyes staring back at me. Cold terror washed over me, and I forced myself to focus on the road. But it felt like those eyes were following me, piercing right through me. When I finally reached my apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that hung in the air. Each ride home felt like a journey into something I didn't understand. I kept hoping everything would go back to normal, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't. Now I can't help but wonder, was I going crazy? Or was there something really out there, lurking just beyond the tree line? The memories haunt me. I still recall the laughter, the shadow, the figure, and those eyes. I sit in silence, staring out the window, knowing I have to drive by that road again someday. And I can't shake the feeling that whatever was there is waiting for me to pass by once more. The following week, I still felt the echoes of those nights. Each time I got behind the wheel, anxiety twisted in my stomach. I needed to face it. I couldn't let fear control me. So, I decided to drive that road again, hoping it would relieve my mind. It was another chilly evening, and the stars sparkled against the black sky. I took a deep breath as I turned onto the familiar winding road. My heart pounded with each passing tree, but I kept my gaze straight ahead. Maybe I imagined everything. Maybe it was just stress. As I drove, I felt the tension rise in the air around me, like static before a storm. I switched on the radio to drown out my thoughts, but the music only seemed to amplify the silence that surrounded me. The moment I passed the overgrown lot, I noticed a flicker of movement. It was just a glimpse, but it sent shivers down my spine. I shook my head, trying to brush it off. But then I saw it. A figure stood at the edge of the woods, partially hidden by shadows. My heart raced again. It looked like a person, but something was off about it. Too still, too quiet. I slowed down, feeling pulled to it against my better judgment. As I got closer, the figure turned its head slightly, and I caught a flash of pale skin under the moonlight. It was staring right at me. Panic surged, and I pressed my foot down hard on the accelerator, my heart pounding in my ears. I glanced in my rearview mirror. The figure was now gone, but something else caught my eye. 3 glowing lights, low to the ground, shimmering like distant stars. I had to know what they were. I pulled over again, a mix of dread and curiosity clashing in me. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking, and stepped out of the car. The night felt alive, as if the forest was holding its breath. The lights were just beyond the dense trees, pulsating softly. It was mesmerizing but chilling. I felt my skin crawl, as if something was watching me. "Hello?" I called out, but my voice cracked. There was no response. The lights flickered again. With my heart racing, I took a step closer. The laughter I thought I forgot echoed in my mind, more pronounced this time. It wasn't just in my head. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, relieved for a moment of distraction. But the screen was dead. I glanced up to see the lights flickering wildly, and a cold wind rushed past me. I turned to run back to the car when I heard a whisper, soft but distinct. "Stay!" I darted toward my car, slamming the door shut and locking it. Whatever it was, it did not want me to leave. My instincts screamed for me to drive away, yet the engine wouldn't start. I turned the key over and over, panic flooding my mind. That laughter grew louder, surrounding me like a fog. Finally, the engine roared to life, and I peeled out onto the road, desperate to escape. In my rearview mirror, I glimpsed the forest, dark and still, but those lights were gone. As I finally reached the safety of my apartment, something gnawed at me. What had I just encountered? Who or what was in those woods? I had sought answers, yet I only found more questions, dangling temptingly in the darkness. I couldn't shake the feeling that I hadn't seen the last of it. The next night, I knew I had to go back. I waited until dusk, trying to calm my racing thoughts. The first night had left me shaken, but I couldn't let it win. I drove to the same spot, determination mixing with unease. The road seemed wider tonight, stretching out endlessly as if challenging me. I could almost hear it whispering, taunting me for coming back. As I parked the car, the memory of that figure flashed in my mind. What if I faced it head-on? What if I found out what it wanted? I stepped out into the cool night air, taking a deep breath. The moon hung low, casting long shadows that danced along the trees. I wish I could say I felt brave. Just a quick look, I whispered to myself, forcing my legs to move. I stepped toward the woods, each crunch of leaves underfoot echoing in the stillness. They felt heavy, like burdens I carried on my shoulders. As I neared the edge of the trees, I hesitated, the darkness thickening around me. I strained my ears, listening. Was that laughter again? It sounded distant but also unnervingly close, as if it was hidden just behind the trees. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the noise, but my gut twisted with instinct. Something was wrong here. I turned to leave, but then a low hum vibrated through the air, pulling my focus back. The lights were back, hovering exactly where I had seen them before. They flickered like fireflies but beckoned me forward. This time I couldn't resist. I took a step closer, heart pounding in rhythm with the pulsating glow. Then I saw her. A woman, her hair long and silver, stood among the trees, her arms outstretched. She looked almost ethereal, a creature carved from the night itself, but her eyes glinted with an unsettling intensity. I froze. She was beautiful but carried an aura of darkness that sent chills through me. "Come," she said softly, her voice smooth yet taunting. "I've been waiting." The laughter returned, louder now, and I understood it wasn't just in my head. It surrounded me, echoing from the depths of the forest. My instincts kicked in again. I needed to get out, but my legs felt rooted to the ground. "Come," she repeated, and it was no longer an invitation but a command. The air grew thick, and every sense in my body screamed for me to run. I turned quickly, sprinting back toward my car, panic surging through my veins. The engine roared to life almost instinctively this time, and I sped off. Through my rearview mirror, I swore I saw her standing among the trees, the glow dimming behind her as I raced towards safety. Back home, my heart still ran wild. I couldn't shake the image of that woman and her hollow eyes. Who was she? What did she want? I felt an urgent compulsion to return, to understand the connection between us. But I knew I had to prepare myself for what might happen next. Something was out there, and it was searching for me. The next day dragged like molasses. I couldn't concentrate at work, and every passing moment felt heavy with dread. I had replayed the night before in my mind 1,000 times. The woman, the lights, the laughter. None of it made sense. After the sun dipped low, I stood by the window, staring out into the darkening sky. I wasn't too sure if I should go back to the woods or stay put. My heart and mind battled fiercely in silence. Eventually, curiosity won. I grabbed my keys. As I drove, the road felt different, more claustrophobic. Shadows loomed larger, and that sense of being watched prickled at the back of my neck. I parked near the same clearing, but something felt off this time. The air was still, too still, as if the world around me held its breath. That I stepped out, the crunch of gravel louder than I remembered. There was no laughter this time, just an eerie silence that settled in my chest. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of the questions I needed answers to. With each step toward the woods, every decision felt like a reckless gamble. As I stared at the treeline, I noticed something new, a faint glow flickering just beyond the dark thicket. My heart raced with both fear and thrill as I ventured closer. The glow intensified, illuminating what appeared to be an old, moss-covered stone. I edged forward, curiosity bubbling inside me. That S, when I saw it, carved into the stone, was a symbol, a spiraling pattern that looked ancient, almost otherworldly. My heart sank. I felt a connection to it, but I couldn't explain how or why. For a split second, I considered touching it, but instinct warned me against it. I stepped back, licking my dry lips, trying to steady my breath. Suddenly, I heard whispering. It echoed through the trees, soft but insistent. I couldn't make out the words, yet they wrapped around me like vines, tugging and pulling me toward the stone. Panic surged through me again. It was a melody laced with the same laughter I had heard before. Before I could react, a shadow broke through the trees. I squinted, and my heart dropped when I recognized the outline. It was the woman. She stood there, silver hair flowing around her, draped in flowing darkness. My legs screamed at me to run, but I was paralyzed, a deer caught in the headlights. "Do you see it?" she whispered, her voice smooth and enticing. "It holds the answers." I wanted to scream for her to go away, to leave me alone, but the words got stuck in my throat. The hum of the forest intensified, making it hard to think. I couldn't turn back now. This was the moment I had come for. "Come to me," she beckoned again. But it wasn't the command I had heard before. This plea felt more desperate, almost pleading. Just then, the ground beneath me trembled slightly. An instinct drove me to look down at the stone, and I could hardly believe what I saw. The symbol was glowing brighter now, pulsating with energy. Then, everything went dark. I stumbled back, fear gripping my chest. The last glimpse of her fading form gripped me in a way I couldn't explain. This wasn't just curiosity anymore. I was losing control. Breathless and shaken, I turned to flee, but not without the nagging thought that I was not the only one who had questions. Someone or something was pulling me deeper into this mystery, and I was about to find out how deep it truly went. I stumbled through the darkness, my mind racing. I fumbled for my keys, but my hands were shaking. I dropped them twice before finally getting a grip. Every moment felt surreal, the night air thick and heavy around me. I sped away from the clearing, my heart pounding in time with the engine's roar. I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see her standing there. But all I saw was the road stretching behind me, swallowed by shadows. A tight knot formed in my stomach. The quiet of the woods had shifted into the silence of night, and it was unsettling. As I drove, thoughts swirled in my mind. What had I seen? Who was she? And what did the symbol mean? Just a few blocks from home, the headlights illuminated a figure on the side of the road. I slammed the brakes, heart racing again. It was another woman, drenched in rain-soaked darkness, standing perfectly still. A sense of déjà vu washed over me. I rolled the window down, my voice shaking. "Do you need help?" She turned slowly, revealing features that were both familiar and foreign. Her eyes were wide, almost pleading. "Please, at the tree," she whispered. "It's coming." I blinked in confusion, feeling the blood drain from my face. Before I could respond, she turned and ran, disappearing into the blackness where the trees loomed. I glanced back toward the direction of the woods, my mind racing. Did she mean the same tree? The stone? I had to go back. The urgency burned within me, but something deeper pulled at me with hesitance. I looked ahead, deciding to push the doubts to the side. What does it mean? I muttered to myself before making a U-turn. As I drove back, the weight of the darkness pressed against my car. I cranked the radio louder, hoping the music could drown out the thoughts spiraling in my mind. But every note reminded me of the laughter I'd heard before. It was haunting. When I reached the clearing again, I parked hastily, the engine sputtering to silence. I climbed out, the chill of the night wrapping around me like a blanket of dread. The same eerie stillness filled the air. My feet moved forward almost on their own, compelled by an invisible force. That S when I felt it, a vibration in the ground, like a solid bass note resonating through my body. I looked down, and the moss-covered stone was aglow again. The symbol pulsed rhythmically, magnetic and inviting. I hesitated, my heart racing. "Help me!" The voice, the whisper from before, echoed faintly, pleading. I felt drawn toward the stone, each step more feverish than the last. But then I remembered the woman from the road. What is coming? The question clawed at me, demanding an answer. Suddenly, I heard rustling in the underbrush behind me. Shadows moved, and the whispers grew louder. Another figure stepped into the clearing, this time from the trees directly opposite. It wasn't her, it was a man, his face shrouded in shadow. I froze, staring at the unknown threat now standing between me and the stone. His intent was impossible to read, but the energy around us crackled with tension. "What do you want?" I shouted, panic rising in my throat, and the whispering intensified, drowning out my words. He smiled, and I suddenly wished I hadn't come back at all. The man took a step forward, his smile widening. It was unnerving, like a predator slowly closing in on its prey. I felt the urge to run, but my feet were glued to the ground. I had come too far, and I couldn't show fear in this moment. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice firmer than I felt. "What do you want with me?" He chuckled, a low, guttural sound that sent shivers crawling down my spine. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his tone almost playful, as if we were sharing a joke that I wasn't in on. "But now that you're here, it's too late." I scanned the surrounding darkness, searching for a way out. The trees loomed like sentinels, and the weight of the night pressed in even closer. "What does that mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's coming?" "Everything." The word slithered into the air, heavy with foreboding. His eyes glinted in the faint light cast by the stone, and I saw a flicker of something. Was it hunger or something darker? The whispers around us grew louder, an unintelligible chorus that buzzed at the edges of my brain. I had to get away. I took a cautious step back, ready to turn and run, but my foot caught on the uneven ground, and I stumbled. He moved in an instant, closing the distance between us. "You're not going anywhere," he said, reaching out for me. I felt the cold grip of fear wrap around my throat, choking me. Just then, the pulsating stone let out a burst of light, blinding me for a second. I shielded my eyes as the vibrations intensified, resonating through the air like a warning. The man snarled, recoiling from the light. It was a power I couldn't comprehend, but I sensed it might be my only chance. The stone called out to me again, this time with urgency. "Help me," the voice cried, rising above the chaos. I didn't have time to think. I lunged for the stone, my fingers brushing against its surface, and that S when I felt it, a rush of energy surged through me, merging with the intense vibrations of the stone. The man screamed, a sound filled with rage and pain, and I felt the world around me shift. Shadows swirled, and for a split second, I saw the forest bend and warp. "You are meddling with forces beyond your understanding," he yelled as I concentrated on the stone. I wasn't sure how long I stood there, my heart hammering as the light grew brighter, but eventually the whispers turned into cries. The darkness began to dissolve, revealing shapes in the shadows that I couldn't quite make out, figures that seemed to writhe and twist in the glow. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything fell silent. I opened my eyes to find the clearing empty. The stone's glow faded, and my breath caught in my throat. I was alone, standing at the edge of the forest, but the weight of what had just happened settled heavily on my chest. "Help me," the voice faded like a distant memory, leaving me in eerie silence. My hands trembled as I backed away from the stone, feeling a mix of triumph and dread. I had faced something in that moment, something that tried to hold me back, but what had it been? What had just happened? I turned to leave, but the path out felt different now, as if it were a maze turning in on itself. A low rumble echoed through the trees, and I realized with dread that this wasn't over. I had only scratched the surface, and whatever was coming was still out there. I stumbled through the forest, the weight of silence pressing down on me. My heart was still racing, but now it felt mismatched with the stillness around me. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting the man to emerge from the darkness. But there was nothing, just the rustle of leaves and distant sounds of the night. As I stepped over roots and rocks, the forest felt alive with secrets. I wanted to forget what had happened, but the vibrations of the stone lingered in my bones. "Help me," the voice replayed in my mind, echoing in the empty space around me. Who had it belonged to? And why did it feel so urgent? An unsettling thought crept in. If the man had been feeding off that energy, what if there were more like him? I pressed on, my steps quickening as anxiety wrapped around me. I needed to get home, but every turn felt wrong. The path twisted like a serpent, and the shadows clung to me as if they were alive. Then I caught a glimpse of something red in the underbrush. I paused, my breath hitching. I stepped closer, and my heart sank. A tattered piece of fabric caught on a thorny bush, the color striking against the dark. It looked familiar. My mind raced. I recognized it. It was from my scarf, the one I had left at my friend S' house last week. Why was it here? Gripping it tightly, I glanced around, wondering if this was a sign, but it felt like a warning instead. I glanced over my shoulder again, feeling watched. The sensation prickled my skin, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. I shook off the panic and turned back toward the path, determined to keep moving. But then I heard it, a low growl, close and menacing, cutting through the night. Came from just ahead. My breath caught. Would I have to face whatever was stalking me? Please, not now, I whispered to myself, forcing my legs to keep moving. But as I stepped forward, the growl deepened, morphing into a series of strange sounds, grunts, clicks, and hisses. My heart raced even faster. I stopped, torn between curiosity and fear. That S when I saw it, a shadow darting between the trees, quick and low to the ground. I squinted, trying to make out what it was. My stomach clenched. I felt like I was intruding on something primal. I needed to retreat but was rooted to the spot, unable to turn away. Then the rustling started again. But this time it was accompanied by whispers, many voices murmuring in a language I couldn't understand. Panic surged as I realized they were circling around me, but the only thing I could think about was getting out of there. My scarf fell from my grip as I sprinted back toward where I hoped the clearing was. Then everything went dark. A shadow enveloped me, swallowing the faint glow of the moonlight. Fear spiraled within me. I had reached the edge of something, and whatever lay beyond was waiting. What felt like a heartbeat stretched into an eternity, and suddenly I was standing somewhere else. The tension snapped as I blinked against blinding light, a surge of energy flowing again. But this time it wasn't coming from the stone. It swirled around me, wrapping tight, and I screamed, desperate as the night pressed and I needed answers. But what I discovered wasn't what I had bargained for. I gasped, the light fading as quickly as it had come. I found myself back in the forest, but everything felt different. The trees towered higher, their twisted branches clawing at the night sky. It was eerily quiet, devoid of the rustling and whispers that had surrounded me moments before. I staggered, disoriented. Where had the energy gone? I focused on my breathing, trying to shake off the lingering terror. Maybe I had only imagined it. But just then, a chill ran down my spine. A flicker of movement caught my eye. It was a figure tall and cloaked in shadow, standing at the edge of a clearing. My heart hammered in my chest. I couldn't make out a face, but the presence felt heavy, oppressive. Fear rooted me in place, and my instincts screamed to run. "Hey!" I called out, my voice trembling in the stillness. "Who are you?" The figure didn't respond, just continued to stand there, unmoving. I felt a desperate need to know what it wanted. I took a hesitant step forward. Is someone with you?" Still nothing. But then the air shifted. I felt it swirl around me, wrapping tighter yet again. It wasn't just the energy from before. This felt more tangible, almost like a force pressing me to stay. Behind me, I heard the growl again, rising low from the depths of the forest. My heart dropped. I turned back to the path, ready to run, but the growl escalated, intertwining with the whispers. This time it was clear. "Stay," it said, drawn out, as if beckoning me closer. "No, I need to leave," I whispered, my pulse quickening. The clearing felt like a stage, and I was the unwitting performer. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was part of something I didn't understand, something sinister. I hesitated, caught between the urge to flee and the magnetic pull of the shadowy figure. Suddenly, I remembered the throbbing energy I had felt when I first arrived. I focused my thoughts, willing myself to connect with whatever it was. "Help me," I murmured, hoping it resonated. In that moment, the growl faded, replaced with a haunting silence. I glanced at the figure again. Its posture shifted, and I caught a glimpse of eyes reflecting the light of the moon. They seemed alive, swirling with colors I couldn't describe. Then, with an unsettling swiftness, the figure stepped into the light. I stumbled back, heart racing, as it approached. "I've been waiting," it said in a voice that echoed around me. "You can't leave. Not yet." With those words swirling in my mind, I felt my resolve shatter. I desperately wanted to understand, but the darkness began to close in again. The weight of the night pressed down, suffocating. And just when I thought I might break, the figure reached out, its hand brushing against my arm. Then everything shattered, scattering like glass on the ground. What had I gotten myself into? I thought, knowing that whatever came next would be more complicated than I ever intended. I blinked, and everything around me shifted. The forest morphed into swirling shadows, trees warping and dancing like they were alive. I lost my footing and stumbled backward, the ground feeling unsteady beneath my feet. The figure loomed closer, and every instinct told me to run, but my body betrayed me. "Wait," I yelled, panic tightening my throat. I turned to flee, but the growl erupted again, shaking the very ground. It was overwhelming, wrapping around me, pulling me into the darkness. I was caught trapped between the unseen predator and the figure that held my fate in its shadowy grasp. "Do not run," the voice commanded, steady yet laced with an unsettling calm. "You seek answers, but they lie beyond fear." I could barely comprehend what it meant. I was terrified. I needed to escape, but as I strained to move, I felt a wave of energy wash over me, warmer than before. Inviting but somehow deceptive, the figure extended its hand again, glowing faintly in the midnight gloom. I hesitated, torn between my desire for answers and primal instinct to survive. "Please," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I don't want to be here." The air thickened, and the clearing trembled with uncertainty. "But you are here for a reason," it replied, its voice wrapping around me like a comforting shroud. I stood there, breathless and bewildered, the weight of the forest pressing in from all sides. I didn't know how long I had been gone or if any of it had been real. It felt like a dream, but the cold air and the crunch of leaves beneath my feet grounded me in reality. The pull toward the stone was still strong, but the last time I encountered it had nearly cost me everything. I glanced around, half expecting the shadowy figure to reappear. Anxiety wrapped itself around my chest, whispering doubts and fears. What had I stumbled into? That last encounter was a tapestry of chaos, and I was uncertain of the threads that remained. As I turned to retrace my steps, unease settled deep into my gut. The road stretched out before me, twisting back to the clearing, and I hesitated for a moment. But I couldn't ignore the pull towards the mystery any longer. I had made it so far already. With each tentative step, I felt the ground vibrate beneath me more than just echoes of the darkness. There was something living in the rhythm of the forest. Back in the clearing, the stone sat in stillness, a silent sentinel cloaked in darkness. Its symbol lay dormant, and for a moment, an eerie calm washed over me. I felt as if I decrossed some invisible line. Had I escaped it all, or merely wandered deeper into its grasp? The air was thick with weight, the laughter and whispers still lingering like stale smoke. I crouched down before the stone and placed my palm against its surface. To my surprise, warmth surged through me, pulling me deeper into a trance. I closed my eyes, the pulsation of energy rising beneath my hand. "Help me," the voice echoed again, but this time it felt clearer, less desperate. It was almost soothing that I breathed in, allowing my thoughts to scatter like leaves in the wind. Somehow, I understood that whatever this force was, it was part of me now. "What do you want?" I murmured, not expecting a response. Yet the air shimmered, and suddenly, the laughter was back. It surrounded me, filling the space, reverberating with joy, sadness, and something darker. "Stay," the word flowed through the chorus more confidently this time. It felt like an invitation, but I couldn't succumb. Hope mingled with dread as I turned my head towards the shadows where I sensed the presences lingering still. Then it hit me. The figure from before the woman, the man wasn't just a shadow or a trick of light. They were entwined in this forest, just as much as I was. Their intentions still evaded me, leaving questions lingering like mist. The ground trembled again, this time with urgency, as if time itself was now a constraint. "Everything you've lost," the whispers urged. "Bring it back." Instinctively, I felt the stones beneath me pulse with energy as my heart raced anew. Every memory I had suppressed flickered like old film reels, merging into the pressing weight of this moment, the roots of my past, the connections I'd made, and everything I had yet to encounter. And just as I opened my mouth to respond, the world fell away. The connection to the stone felt like a tether snapping. Light flooded the clearing again. But this time, it was not jarring. It washed over me, calming but powerful, scattering the shadows and whispering sweet promises of understanding. With it came clarity and a sudden sense of empowerment that I opened my eyes to find the clearing still. The stone remained at its center, pulsing gently, reflecting the moonlight that now penetrated the trees. The laughter subsided until it was nothing but a distant echo, a memory unfolding in the quiet. The previous weight had lifted, leaving behind a strange lightness of being. Yet, just as quickly, a flicker of fear returned. Was it truly gone? I stepped back, anticipation mingled with uncertainty. It was done, or was it merely the end of a chapter? There were no neat resolutions, only countless unknowns now remaining in the endless night. Taking a final glance at the enigmatic stone, I turned and walked back into the trees. Whatever had cloaked this darkness was still present, about to reveal something new. Could sense that whatever was waiting for me out there still held the power to alter everything. As I ventured deeper into the forest, I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting the shadows to stir once more. The laughter faded, but the question lingered in the air. Was this truly my escape, or the beginning of something else entirely? I would find out soon enough. As the path twisted before me, one thing was certain: this journey was far from over.